you were actually one of the people that got me into podcasting when I first started.
Really?
Yeah, when I was going to do my very first episode, you arranged the meeting with Chari Patriarchi.
That's right.
Which was my very first podcast. So like the connection with this podcast and yourself and like the guidance with you has been you were one of my lecturers, unit coordinators in Oceanography, which was by far one of my most favourite units to learn. Well, learning, like my whole life has been on the ocean and learning the ocean currents and was so fascinating and like even in so many different ways.
This production was recorded at the podcast studios in the Media Arts Centre at Murdoch University. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Murdoch University. Any content provided by the hosts and guests are their personal opinions and are not intended to represent the views or opinions of the university, its administration, faculty, or staff. Now we have that out of the way, let's talk science. Paramount importance.
One of the things I learned about you a long time ago was that you grew up living, or you slept on a bed made of seagrass.
That's exactly right. So my granddad made this cot, and then they had this mattress that was made of dried seagrass, not seaweed, but seagrass.
Wow!
And it clearly instilled it in me.
Yeah, definitely.
Over the years.
Was that common for people to have beds?
Quite common in those days. Yeah, for because it's breathable and very, safe for babies and things like that. So,
yeah. Right. Yeah, I found that so fascinating because I've never heard of that before, and it's a fact about you that I've remembered.
Makes
forever.
me feel very old though, because it's sort of like something of the olden days, when people slept on seagrass beds.
Well, the fact that you studied seagrass, and in the research space for so long as well, it's a pretty cool connection.
It's interesting that you bring that back because I haven't really thought about that, but that's probably true. I should put that in my memoirs,
Yeah, I think so because it's
start on a seagrass bed.
Well, it's a fact that's stuck with me, and I found it so cool, cool. But today we're here not to talk about seagrass, or I guess a little bit about ocean currents. We've come to talk about this major voyage and adventure that you just went on. You recently have come back from Antarctica. Can you please tell us what was it about, and then we'll delve into more details.
Oh, exciting. So yes, it's not that long ago, a few months ago, and it was part of a global leadership program for women in STEM specifically, so to basically give women in science more of a voice and to also collaborate and get this whole system going. But it's part of a year-long program, right? So we had a year-long online program, and we were taught to get funding for this trip as well. So you get funders, you get sort of donors, and to help you come on that trip. And it's global. So although it's it's an Australian organisation, but it's a global initiative, if you like. So we had lots of women all over the world. So also engineers, doctors, astrophysicists, all sorts of.
Right. So it wasn't just marine or environmental scientists.
We're very few marine, and that's the interesting thing. So yeah.
Is there a reason for that, or
it's for women in STEM. So any science, technology, engineering, medical, and maths, right? So that's basically what it's for. So for all these different scientists of different regions, and then Antarctic trip in our case was the global meetup for that. So this year apparently they're going to Tanzania because the sensitivity of the area of Antarctica. So, but for 4 or 5 years, they went to Antarctica as their global meetup in the end.
Right. So, how many scientists went to this Antarctica trip?
So, this was the last one of a series of Antarctic trips. So, it was a little bit fuller prescribed, I think, than it was meant to be. 125 women.
Oh, wow.
Plus 82 staff.
Yeah.
And an 8-people expedition team as well, which was great.
Right. So, it's full boat.
And it's a fairly small tourist vessel. So not a research vessel, but a tourist vessel. But yeah.
What were you doing when you were there?
So we got lots of leadership programs on the ship as well, working together. What's so important about getting scientists together is the different aspects and the different angles and views of thinking together to actually get a voice to change the necessities for the environment, for example, right? So you have so many different things that you can talk about and think about in a different way, and then you become this system thinker, and you maybe find solutions for larger problems in the world, not just Antarctica.
Because, as you said, you've got people from so many different disciplines, different ways of thinking. Like I could imagine it would have been quite exciting, but also get sort of disheartening to some of the things you would have seen there, but exciting to be able to collaborate and think in different ways and come up with different solutions. Does it find a difference when it's like with women, like to like a mixed gender?
So as you know, I've worked in the Arctic as a scientist, and I was often the only female on board a ship. So the dynamics are very different. I think with women in general, they are far more emotionally involved in the things that they see in terms of nature or nature's harm or, climate change and things like that. So I found that was quite something to get used to, really, because I wasn't used to that at all. And I found that quite jarring sometimes, that this emotional feeling with it. Yeah, I don't know how to describe that. I found that
it's a hard one to describe. Yeah.
So, and I know eco-grief is a thing, and it became much more clearer for me during that trip, being with so many women in that, and many of them mothers as well. And I think, it makes a difference, into what's their future going to hold, or their children's future and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know like things I did growing up, my aunties and my mother and all that like had a different perspective. Like I do a lot of fishing, and like even though my mother likes to eat fish, the fact that she didn't like me as much like going out and catching fish, like she said, oh, poor fishes kind of thing, where my dad was like complete opposite. So I can definitely see a different perspective. What were some of the professional insights that you found gained like on this trip?
Yeah, so you learn a lot from each other with all these different disciplines. Now, as a scientist and a marine scientist on these ships, you learn that as well. You go with a group of scientists that have very different disciplines, so you learn science-wise a lot more and look at different things. But also what I found quite astounding was that as an oceanographer, and there were very few marine people there, I found that people didn't quite see the connection of the world or the ocean in that area. And I found that astounding, that even as scientists, that we still do a little bit of siloing in our thinking in our particular discipline.
Right.
So I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Like, I guess maybe, I don't know if it's because like I do a lot of ecology kind of stuff, that you see the relatedness between, the animals to the environments around them and then how it all connects. So yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I imagine you would have seen some incredible scenes and wildlife. What was it like out there?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, of course, to see it. So disclaimer, we went at the end of summer, so at the west part of Antarctica, so the peninsula really, so it's slightly warmer there, so you will see slightly less glacier ice or snow because of that time of the year. But we saw amazing tabular ice shelves or icebergs coming past. Fantastic, of course, but however magnificent they are, those icebergs, it's also a sign of global warming. So one of the largest, and it was actually in the news last year, broke off, is called the A80A. They numbered these icebergs that break off. And it broke off from the Larsen ice shelf, which is in the north part of the Weddell Sea. And basically it sort of broke off and then started drifting and then got stuck on a seamount and sort of created Taylor columns and was circulating like that, or sort of spinning basically.
Taylor columns?
Like a Taylor column, yeah. Sort of.
Like an eddy?
Yeah. Pretty much. So it sort of started spinning because it got stuck on this seamount, and it got unstuck, and we actually sailed past that particular iceberg. So that's quite amazing to see that in real life. It's like 100 square kilometer type iceberg. It's huge. It's like a
100
mass.
squared.
Yeah, it's just incredible. It's huge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so fascinating. But at the same time, it's also a sign of climate change, because it's an ice shelf that broke off. So you have a glacier, and then you have the ice shelf that sort of forms, and that sort of sits on the water a little bit. But because the water is getting warm, it sort of carves off the underneath of the ice part that is in the ocean and that sort of breaks off. Yeah, so that's the sad thing about.
Beauty but sad at the same time.
Yeah. And then, of course, all the penguins on these icebergs, they're very cute to see. And when you're sort of steaming past them and you see these little black and white critters walking around, it's just really quite good. And, the power that they have, how uncomfortable they look, when they're sort of waddling on the ice. Once they're in the water, they're like torpedoes. They're incredibly, agile. It's just amazing to see that.
Yeah. Do they benefit by the icebergs? This is a pretty out there question, but benefit by the icebergs breaking off because it's like less predation from, say, polar bears?
Well, the seals just lie on those icebergs as well.
Yeah,
so, I mean, they jump up. I mean, we've seen them jump 2-3 meters high from the water onto these icebergs, these little penguins, and they're about knee high. Don't mind knee high. Might be different for other people. They're not, they're huge. The 4 species that we saw were the smaller ones on that side of the Antarctic.
Right. Were the icebergs like extremely bright, like reflecting the light?
Yeah, so we had lots of blue ice as well. It depends on, the amount of bubbles that you have and how it's formed, whether it's bluer or whiter. But we have massive, like really sort of mountainous type icebergs that we saw as well. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I can imagine the contrast between like the ocean and the white. Like I've seen a couple of your photos online with the penguins on there, so it's just like an amazing contrast between like the ocean and the white icebergs, and then you got the black dots of the penguins on there. It looks pretty spectacular. Yeah,
so there's an area that they call Iceberg Alley. So you see lots of icebergs floating about, different shapes.
What about whales? Did you see many of like?
We did see quite a few whales, quite a few humpback whales, some fin whales, some orcas as well. So, and we were very lucky. We saw them very, very close by on a very still day. So we had different weather patterns, but on this particular day, it was a big humpback whale coming to seek us out.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
we were very, very close. So I haven't posted that photo, I don't think. But it was very close, like maybe 10 meters from our Zodiac. You have the bigger ship and then you go with the Zodiac onto a landing.
Yeah.
And then in that period, we came across this really massive humpback whale that just been feeding. So just mouth full of good stuff.
Oh, awesome. Pretty special.
Yeah.
What about human influence? Did you see much human influence over there, like fishing vessels or, I don't know, old research stations or things like that?
So we saw a couple of sailing ships, 3 masters, which was interesting, that went from Ushuaia in Argentina, sailed to the Antarctic, where we were.
Like
so
private vessels or commercial vessels?
They're teaching training ships, a little bit like the Lewin, but then a little bit bigger. This particular one that we saw was a Dutch captain and then Dutch flagship that went there as a training trip.
Did you connect with them?
We did, of course.
Yeah.
Had a bit of a chat.
Yeah.
But so we saw them in that area, and then we saw maybe 1 or 2 other boats, some 2 research vessels perhaps. We were at sea for about 2.5 weeks. So, but it's a very well orchestrated organization, and how and when you see ships for the tourists as well. So
yeah.
So you don't see many. No, we didn't see many.
No, that's good. And
but there are stations, of course. And so on the West Coast as well. So the Argentinian station and the British station and the American station that we visited as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing of human influences that you see is the old whaling stations, for example. In Whalers Bay is a prime example of that, where you have the blubber boilers and the kettles that are still remnants of that from the late 1800s, when people were whaling and sealing, right, in those days. And there were lots of whaling boats, smaller boats that they used to go out and harpoon and chase the whales and the seals. Yeah, so we know that in those days, the things that they didn't use from the whales or the seals was thrown back into the ocean. So you talk about nearly 200 years ago that things were put into a pristine area already, right? So, and those, it's a heritage site. But for me personally,
does it get maintained? Or is it sort of just left to the weather?
It's just left there. Yeah, there was some graffiti on it when we arrived.
Graffiti?
Graffiti, yeah. So they cleaned that.
Yeah.
So who would do that? But anyway.
Yeah, how would someone even get there to do that?
So it must, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe a private ship, who knows? But we don't know. But it was cleaned off. So so it is, in that sense, maintained. So somebody looks after it, clearly. But for me, it's just a junkyard, really. It's just some old kettles and, a shed that's completely.
When you mean kettles, like for cups of teas or like big boilers?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's a bit sad to see.
Yeah. Well, I guess also good though that it's not running in a way. Like,
no. I mean, the numbers of whales and seals are coming back for sure. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But now they have the next thing that they need to worry about, right?
Mm-hmm. What were some of the challenges you faced while over there? What, did you personally have?
Personal challenges. That's a good question.
Is there a particular moment that impacted you the most?
Well, in terms of what I saw, there's a couple. It's difficult to pick because there's quite a few moments, really. Of the one of them was when I saw an iceberg calf or tip, and the sound it makes. It's it makes you realize how powerful nature is, because it's incredibly thundering sound when this was a small iceberg and just capsized. And it was just breaking in all sorts of pieces, and the shattering sound and the thundering sound of that. The power of that is quite incredible.
Yeah,
you think, well, how small are we?
Yeah,
that's why that's one thing, and of course the numbers of. Yeah.
Did it make a big wave?
No, it was small enough because we're not allowed. When you're in the zodiacs, there's strict rules about how far you have to be from those icebergs. So a larger iceberg, and some of these walls are like 20, 30 meters high. You're tiny in a, so if in a zodiac. So if a piece of that iceberg was to break off or carve off, that would have created a big wave, and it's a little bit dangerous. So we weren't allowed to go too near to those. And this was an accidental. It's a smaller one, but still the power of it was palpable.
Yeah, I could imagine it would be like a.
Yeah, and the other thing that was really impressive was standing in a colony of like 60,000 penguins, right? The cacophony of the sound of these penguins. It's like a ski slope, really busy ski slope. So you've got penguins going up, having just fished, and they're going to feed their chicks, because when we were there, they had chicks. And then you have the rest going down, going for a fish. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So
quite loud, the noises.
They're very, very loud. That, and then very enthusiastic women in the background as well. Very, very noisy.
I can imagine that's awesome. Could you feel the heat from them? Was that are they close enough?
No, you don't get.
Don't get too close. Okay,
so there's lots of little flags that sort of push off where you can go. Absolutely. So it's before even you go on the landing, it's made sure that the site is clean, because avian flu or bird flu is there. So we make that the expedition team makes sure that there's no signs of any of that.
That avian flu is we won't talk about too much because not our areas of science, but that's crazy. That's made every single continent, including Antarctica, but not Australia. I would have thought Antarctica being the
so
last
close.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm not quite sure. It's not my field, but I think there is a case in Eastern.
Oh, really?
Australia,
That's okay.
I'm not sure.
That has
but
to be
don't quote me on that one.
Yeah. Okay, so then I guess eventually it was going to make it over, but how does it compare? Because you said you worked in the northern region. How does it compare to the Arctic region on the other side of the world?
Well, other than working with male scientists, the area is very different, of course. Antarctica is a landmass covered by snow and ice and then surrounded by oceans, whereas the Arctic is basically the ocean, lots of sea ice, and then surrounded by countries. So it's very different in its formation of ice and much, much quieter. So
what do you mean by that, quieter?
So when you go with an ice-breaking ship through the ice, all you hear is basically the breaking of the ice, the twinkling of the ice.
Is this in the Arctic?
in the Arctic.
Yeah.
And then you have, and that could also be because I was there mostly in the later months or the winter months, so it's a bit more ice. But no penguins, no very few birds, maybe the odd walrus and the odd polar bear, but very few sounds of nature. It was very quiet in that sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So whereas in the Antarctic there's so much going on, lots of penguins and whales and all sorts of things moving around and making lots of noise.
Yeah, right. So you reckon there's more life in Antarctica? Like that's up. Well, how do you quantify
Just
that?
visible,
Really?
maybe more visible.
Yeah,
more visible,
larger.
perhaps. And in the Arctic, it's more larger. I guess larger animals like polar bears and walruses are huge animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, and different ecosystem, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Is it? Do the currents sort of work similarly both sides? Like, do they have this circumpolar currents both ends?
Well, there's ice formation on both ends, and when that happens, you have sort of convection cells that create currents. So if water freezes, basically, and you should know this from your oceanography. So you get that salty, really cold water that sinks. It's very heavy. It sinks and creates basically a circulation of convection cells, and you have that in both polar areas. It's just that in the Arctic, it's sea ice, right? So the water freezes, whereas in the Antarctic you have a lot of snow and sort of on land, and then you have these ice shelves that's formed through glaciers and things like that. Right? But it's mainly on the land. And then, of course, you also have sea ice, but it's a very different sort of system.
Yeah.
But you have, we have various currents, and they're all both part of the conveyor belt, right? So the largest current, if you like, that snakes around the globe, really. So we have the Antarctic circumpolar current as well around Antarctica. So all the oceans come together there in Antarctica.
It's the thing that connects the world.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's, for me, was the thing that I thought that's really vital to know this. That if people realize that everything comes together here, right? So, I mean, everything is connected anyway, and we should really realize that. But when you get to that point in Antarctica and you know there is this landmass and all the oceans, whether it's Indian, Pacific, Atlantic, it all comes in here. So that circumpolar current is really important.
Did you see much plastic pollution?
So no, not really. We didn't really see that, but we know there is microplastics there, but you can't see it. That's the thing. And we didn't do any scientific searches for that, but we didn't see any of that.
Yeah, the only reason I thought of that is if like all the currents like flow down into that, is it like eventually the plastic sort of washes in? But
there is. Yeah. It's proven by all the scientists that there is microplastics in the area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it hits us everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah.
With those the current, the circumpolar current, does that also feed out, or is it more that it all all the currents end up coming into the area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I haven't really looked into that. But the oceans come together, and then you have this current. There's actually quite a strong current, one of the strongest currents in the world.
Oh, really?
But it is, with climate change, it is slowing down. So and it will have cascading effects on what the climate is going to do, right? So as we see in the Arctic, which is where I know a little bit more about, when you have the Gulf Stream is one of those, part of the conveyor belt as well, if you like, and it sort of gives Northern Europe about 4 to 5 degrees warmer temperatures. And if you think about it, Europe is at the same latitude as Canada, right? So that's an interesting thing, and that's because of the heat that the Gulf Stream is giving off. But if that's slowing down, that has impacts on the climate as well.
And that's what they're worried about, like those parts of Europe can freeze.
That is one school of thought, that can happen. But there are so many other factors that we're now learning that haven't necessarily been taken up in some of those models. So there's lots of extra, but I'd have to read a little bit more about that to comment on that.
It's like, so it gets so complex because there's so many different variables.
Complex, that's right.
And everything's connected. Then does this variable influence this variable?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Antarctic circumpolar, I mean, if that's slowing down as well, that will have effects as well as to how the climate is going to go, right? So I think it's been sort of discussed that it acts a little bit as a barrier for invasive species, for example, to Antarctica. So,
All right.
so that's an interesting one. But,
Like, because it pushes them away, or the
yeah, it's
the
sort of like
temperatures,
a
or-
barrier. Yeah, well, it's different temperatures as well, but I mean, it acts like a barrier
right.
for these species to get through, apparently. So,
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, and it influences, as you said, it influences the climate a lot. How is climate change impacting it? So it's slowing it down, and like how does that work?
So it's like this, interactive thing, isn't it? Really. So we have when you have ice melt, so you have a lot more fresh water. Yeah, that's ice is fresh water, mainly. So that will have an effect on the density of the water, and it starts behaving differently. It has, of course, the temperature. The temperature or the density is basically the salinity and the temperature changes create the density differences, and that causes currents or slows them down depending on what happens. So also if you look at the Arctic, people say that if all the ice was to melt off and it forms that cap of fresh water over the surface of the water, that convection cell can't happen. So it slows down the currents, and similar things, I guess, would go and happen in the Antarctic as well.
Right. Would it affect Australia? Like, I'm assuming global warming affects everywhere, but
of course.
Yeah,
it would.
If the currents slowed, what would be happening in Australia? Would we just?
To be honest, that's a question I can't answer. But it will impact, just as the various atmospheric pressure systems affect the ocean movements and the like El Nino, La Nina. It sort of affects everywhere in the world, really. It's a huge, global system.
Yeah.
So it affects it everywhere. Yeah.
Is it at a stage that we've got to be like, are we past like a tipping point, or is it like we're still in the extreme warning phase? Like,
I think we can still do things. But we have to hurry up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you described Antarctica as a symbol of global fragility and interconnectedness, as you've just mentioned. How do you see this perspective shaping public and understanding and policy? Yeah,
so I think, as I mentioned before, if you get the awareness of that we are so connected as humans, but as a world and with the oceans and the atmosphere, once we realize that whatever we do here in Australia or somewhere in Britain or in China, it affects another area of the world. It might take some time, but it will affect it. So I think once one realizes that, that's important. So, and get more of a critical mass behind what we're doing, if that makes sense. So at the moment, we're still telling a chef how they can cook or how well they cook, right? So we have the same people of the same discipline in the room, but we're not going out there further, or it seems that the impact is not going far enough, in my view, to actually make people change habits and things like that. But also policies and politics, right? So some of the policies, I think, can be adapted and should be much stricter to actually, and also for industries to adhere better to these things and to actually look at problems further down the track and not just the lease of a certain site or, So we often talk about marine protected areas, for example, and they are great things, of course, but don't forget that water flows.
Yeah.
So if, just because this area is protected doesn't mean that the water flows through it is clean, if that makes sense. So because it has come from somewhere that may have been polluted and it goes through that marine protected area and affects that area. Is that,
definitely. Yeah. Who manages, I looked into the Antarctic Treaty.
Yeah.
Is it European countries, the UN, or is there specific countries that have higher stakes with?
I think it's equally distributed, actually. So it's an interesting question.
That'd make it quite hard to manage when it's like.
Well, nobody owns it, right? So
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing about Antarctica. But there are about, I think, 29 countries that have signatories or capabilities, and 29 that are there and arrange things. But then we have, of course, Australia's got a big part, and Russia, and, various other countries as well. Argentina, Argentine or Argentina? What's
Argentina?
Argentina? That's it.
Yep.
Sorry. Get it mixed up. So they have claims on there, and there's a Spanish side and things like that. So, but they all have to adhere to certain rules and regulations. Yeah, so they look after it. They can. It's like a little bit like, I guess, like an economic exclusion zone or something like that.
Yeah.
Not quite, but.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be very hard to have anything passed through with so many different perspectives. Like everyone's got different environmental plans.
Yeah.
That it would be an area that's like, I don't know, one that I can't imagine like any, say, marine park be put in place. It'd be very hard to get through. Or well,
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. We have to work towards that so that doesn't happen. But what we've seen is, so there's krill fishing there happening, of course. How do you police these things, right? And when was it? A couple of weeks ago, when they already gained the quota for the krill fisheries.
Oh, in Antarctica.
In Antarctica.
Oh, so there is fisheries there.
There is fisheries there, and so
it's a long.
Yeah, and they.
Actually, I did know. Yeah.
Yeah. And the issue with that is that how do you police that? They've reached the quota. Sorry.
Yeah.
They've reached the quota, but they still, will they still fish or not?
Yeah, well, because it would be like a certain country took more than their portion, right? How do they feed that out? Did you see while you're down there fishing boats? No. Because you can only get to Antarctica for like a certain amount of time of the year, right? There's like a portion of the year that you people just can't go to because of the weather. Well, it's their winter, I guess.
Yeah, their winter, and the mainland, of course, is much colder. We were quite warm in comparison.
Is there like a town or like city there? When you said there's like those bases.
No, it's just bases. There's no settlement. There's no city as such. No.
Yeah, so a city was a bit thrown out. But is there people that live there permanently all year round?
Yeah, there's people that live there all year round in certain stations. The one station that we did, Lockroy, is a British Heritage Trust run place now. It's an old base, I guess, a military base at some point. And now it's run by volunteers, and they change over every 6 months. So in that particular station, there are no facilities as such. So people bring everything on, and they have to take everything off when they go. So there's like wipes and things like that. So you take it on and then you take it back off. And they are only serviced by the tourist ships that come every so now and then, so they can exchange post and things like that.
Yeah, right.
And
such an isolated part of the world.
Yeah, but they do sell stamps, and it's the southernmost post office there. So
yeah. Well, I guess being the South Pole would be.
That's right.
yeah.
So but there's people living there. And I think the Australian base has people living there permanent, well, for a year at least. So it must be quite hard, though. I think they get asked lots of psychological sort of testing and things like that.
Yeah,
sure that you can
have to
endure that, because there is nothing. And once you're there, that's it. Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's not like you can quickly go out for a walk sometimes as well.
Then there's lots of snow everywhere at that stage. So,
Yeah. What areas do you see as most at risk, and what measures can scientists and policymakers take now to protect it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we have to start moving into using more maybe drone and AI technology to monitor how the environment is going, maybe, rather than having bases there. And I mean, apparently there's still helium balloons that are being released, and I don't know whether they will find those helium balloons themselves. So there's pollution in that sense, in the name of science. So I think we should move to different things to protect the area as well, and have more countries that are signatories to these treaties, where we can have more power, if that's the word to use, to actually help the area and protect the area, really.
Mm. Mm.
And stop it from being, mined or fished, for that matter. Yeah. And policies, strict policies. And I think, getting this information out and how it's changing, climate, and for people to understand how it's changing and how it will eventually affect them, to have policies, and especially for large industries as well, to make sure that we have the safe space.
When you were on the island, did you have like a specific feeling of like joy and amazement, or was it like a bit of like sadness seeing like the climate change influence on the place?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think people personally will take that very differently. I think if you're not used to ice at all, and a lot of people weren't, then you see this with like a kid, like through kids' eyes.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, and all these cute penguins, just amazing. But if you know the effects of what's happening, and we saw chicks, for example. It was raining on a day that we were there, on one of the days. And Antarctica is the driest climate in the world, right? So rain does happen every now and then, but it's rare. And we saw these chicks, and they're in the molting phases. So they are absolutely cold, and, that's a sentiment that stuck with me. That picture sticks with me now.
Yeah.
Seeing these poor little things shiver is not really the best idea, and it's very sad.
Right. So why were they cold? Like, I thought they'd be used to the cold.
They are, but they're molting, so they're losing a lot of their fur at that stage.
Right, but isn't that not natural?
It is natural, but if it's raining and the fur gets wet, so when they're molting, they can't swim, for example, right? So because it doesn't insulate them. So so you have the chicks molting, and then you have some of the adults also molting. So it's a combination of things. So when the chicks are molting, they can't go in the water. The parents come and feed them, but they're also less insulated. So they're huddled together. But if it's raining and because they're not supposed to swim, right? Because it all sticks together and it doesn't insulate, and then it's raining, so they're wet and muddy. That's not good. And then the parents are out fishing.
And so they're just standing there.
Yeah.
Is one of the impacts from climate change like more rain in Antarctica?
Could be, yeah.
Could be. Yeah. I can imagine it would just been such a crazy sight to see all that white land mass and all the different animals in there. When you were on the boat, were you guys talking about solutions or things that you could do and implement around? Was it like quite a productive session?
Yeah, so there were quite a few projects, about 70 or so, that were initiated. A lot of them about policies, really, because that's really where we can, without having the actual science, we can do a lot of with, especially if you're not from that particular discipline, right? So that was really good. And people are taking that through as well. So for me, I've taken it on personally, having found my voice, I find, to express these findings and these sentiments, if you like, to the wider public.
Is there, we mentioned earlier about like, is there tipping points where it's going to be too late in the Antarctic system that we may already be crossing? Were there clear evidence for some of those, and like how could science help detect it? So you said, actually you did answer that question before, and saying drone technology and help like monitor it in different ways. That's probably with a less of a footprint.
We know that since the 70s the ice has been receding. We know that. So the scientists know that. And as I said, as a disclaimer, we were there at the end of summer, so it looks a little bit, but it could give you the impression of how it might look like if climate change was progressing in that sense. Yeah. But yeah.
At the very start of the podcast, mentioned that you teach in oceanography. You've got the I've forgotten the name of the Lewin unit.
The Lewin.
Yeah.
Liveaboard oceanography.
Yeah, liveaboard oceanography. How has this experience changed the way you will teach in the future?
So I start off my lectures now with a Spillhouse projection, interestingly enough. Have you heard of the Spillhouse projection?
No.
So you know how the Earth is seen in different projections, like the Mercator projection is usually the one that we see, where you see in the sphere in a 2D flat sort of area, so the Mercator projection. And the Spillhouse projection basically puts the Antarctica in the center, if you like. And if you see that projection, you see how all the oceans connect, and you have the outline of the countries or the land on the outside of the oceans. And it's an aha moment for some people when they see that image, because then you see that, yes, everything is connected. Because you could be mistaken for thinking that, or forgiven for thinking that the end of that 2D representation of the Earth, there is some land there still, the ocean doesn't go through there. But if you see it from this Spillhouse projection, it's really interesting.
If the current stopped, is it bringing warm water into the Arctic?
I'm not quite sure really what's going to happen. If it won't stop.
Yeah.
It will slow down.
Yeah.
But not stop. And it just depending on whatever else is happening, it will have various climatic influences or consequences.
Do you hope to go back there one day?
I would love to go back, but also I'm very aware of going there is also impacting.
Oh, really?
Well, there's 125,000, the last count, 24 for the area for the year of 24, 25, 125,000 tourists go to Antarctica, and we don't really think about that. And it's often people go there on larger ships, so they can't come into some of the landings, and they get educated as well, because there's usually expedition teams on those ships as well explaining about Antarctica, so that's a good thing. And as I said, with the Antarctic Treaty, I mean, it's all very well orchestrated, and they have to adhere to very many rules. It's just that there are many people. I mean, the one thing, so when we go on from the ship onto a Zodiac and then onto a landing, so an area onto the continent, so we were with 125 women, so you can only have 100 at a time, I think, something like that. So split up in groups, but you also know that in the afternoon or the next day, the next group will possibly there with the same amount of number of people. And I can't imagine that it doesn't make an impact on the land when you do that, even though you adhere to all those guidelines, of course. But so that's something that 125,000, that was quite shocking.
Yeah, it's a huge number, and all going relatively to the same spots as well, right?
Pretty much, because some of the areas you can't get to unless you have ice-breaking ships, of course. Not all of them are.
No. Yours was not an ice-breaking ship. No.
That's quite a small ship, so we were lucky to go through some of those islands of the peninsula there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been extremely fascinating to hear the stories of someone that's been on the island from especially with a scientific perspective. My cousin actually did just go there.
Oh, yeah?
He was one of those 125,000 tourists.
Oh,
no. He went there he's a photographer. And then hearing his perspective and your perspective, I guess in a way scientists sometimes come with a bit more of I don't know if pessimistic is the right view, but when you see something not how it should be, it's a lot of times it's more disheartening. Like I had an experience when I went to it was Thailand. Went to I think it was one of their national parks. And we went. They told us to go diving. Well, they took us. It was like a diving tour. And, went out in the boat for ages, and they told us not to go into the deeper water. And when we were swimming over the coral, so much of the coral was just dead. It was broken. There was sea urchins absolutely everywhere. Hardly any fish. And I was with family that have never really ever seen coral reef, I don't think, and a bunch of other tourists as well. And they were like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And I'm looking at Australia's corals so different. It's so much more pristine. I was like, "This is dead. This is really destructive." And then I swam out into the deeper water, and there was just fishing nets wrapped all up in the coral.
Yeah,
and two different types of perspectives sometimes when you see when you know what it should be like as a scientist to as a tourist. So I think, as you said, the importance of getting those messages out there and helping everyone understand it a bit different. It's like extremely important, and telling that story. Yeah, sounds like it was an amazing trip.
It was an amazing trip, and reflecting on some of my answers, it is a little bit depressing in some ways, but it is an absolutely amazing area.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that we get to see every day, so it's fantastic, and the wildlife is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a specific animal or like moment of wildlife that was just like, I know you said the penguins on top of the iceberg before, but was there?
The elephant seals, I love them. The elephant seals.
Yeah, are they the ones? They don't have.
Yeah, exactly. They have this big proboscis.
They're really
just
ugly,
hilarious.
right?
Totally, and big. And they were, so there's this one image. I have a photograph of it. It's my favorite image. So you have this, maybe about 6 or 7 of these elephant seals lying there. They're molting as well. Right, so they're lying there, and sort of, you know, this wavy sort of bodily blubber movement, and, you know, lying there relaxing, and then you have these molting penguins striding sort of in front of it, you know, and there's like feathers everywhere, so totally disheveled. Fantastic look, and that's a really fun. That was a fun thing. So I had to stay there and just watch what's happening here, you know.
Yeah.
So I was really lucky. I have to show you that photo.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a really good one.
Definitely. If you're willing to share it, we'll put it up on our channel as well.
Yeah.
So.
It's my favourite photo. I just think, it's my gosh.
I'm sure you want to do some pretty.
Everybody is just like, whatever, you know, I'm just looking like this, and just, you know, you put this human sort of thing to it, and then it's just striding in front, you know, these elephant seals. Really funny.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. I did see quite a few of your photos were in like the articles of The Guardian, and definitely had a lot of exposure from that. And a few of your photos, I didn't quite realise you were quite the photographer as well. So I just added to one of your ticks of skills.
Yeah, and just with a phone, right? So
was that a phone camera? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I did have a little bit of a lesson though beforehand.
Oh, yeah, handy.
It's very handy. Yeah.
This is going to be a hard one to answer, but should we, like, well, actually, I don't even know how I'm going to ask this question. Like, but should we be really worried about the Antarctica? Like, is it?
It's a difficult question, or difficult to answer, because I think you don't want to really put this really depressive sort of angle to it. You know, we can all do things.
Yeah, we want to inspire the people.
We want to inspire, you know, and think of, rather than thinking of what we've destroyed, think of what we can save, you know, and look at it that way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, and that was actually coming back to the group of women on the ship. So we did this exercise where they showed photographs of phytoplankton and a seal and a fish and beautiful plant and a whale, you know. So put it up in a room of scientists, and they asked them, what would you protect? What's the most important thing? Most people in the ecological way would say the phytoplankton, right? Because that's the basis of everything. Whereas in a group with non-scientists, or, you know, they just like the whale because it's this magnificent megafauna, you know, they would say the whale, right? So, and I think we have to turn that around. The whale can only be protected if you protect its food source. So the minuscule things. So we need the things that we may not necessarily see, the primary producers, right? So the things we can't see, we need to, just because it's in the water and we can't see it, it is so important to protect that. And I think that will be my message, really.
Yeah, that's a very good one, because I think that could also be implied to every ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, well, you as a fisher person, you would know that in the coastal areas, that's where most fish are, right? Well, 90% of the productivity is in like 5% of the ocean. So, you know, and it's because of all the productivity there, all the phytoplankton and the, you know, chlorophyll.
When we went for coffee yesterday, you saying that was exactly what I was talking about in the last week's in the episode when I talked about my sailing holiday, where I just realised how vast and empty, using that in a weird way, but the ocean is. Where when you said it's like 95% of productivity is in. Sorry, did I mention? Did I mention
it's
that right?
about 90% of productivity is in 5% of the ocean.
Yeah.
Right? So the coastal oceans basically is where it all happens.
Which is
mostly
insane.
I mean, there's lots of other productivity areas, of course, but that's the
the very vast majority of it's amazing. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's always a joy talking to you, Jen, and I'm so glad we got to do this.
Thank you, Kurt. It was lovely. Yeah, thank you for asking me to answer some of your questions.